Good morning, everybody.
Morning, John.
It's 10 o'clock. I'm going to take up the practice right now of muting you all just for right now. And that puts on you the onus of turning your microphone back on when you want to talk, and it might cut out some of the background noise. My name is John Kelsey. I'm the moderator of Lancaster Woodturners Coffee Hour, which this is number 88. It's February 3rd, 2022 today. This is as we often do, a show and tell morning, but I'm going to do a little bit differently this week. I noticed when I went through the video from last week that I left some hands raised on the screen, and I apologize for that. And the reason really is we've been doing this thing with 24 participants for a year and a half, 2 years now. And suddenly we're getting 35, 40, 45, and I got to learn better screen scanning skills and put a little more time to it. So I've asked a few guys who had not shown us any work to introduce themselves this morning. I have a little list, and as usual, please mute your phones so they don't come in and ring and disturb us. And learn to use the reactions tab. Here's your lesson for today. If you look at the bottom of your screen, the third from the right, there's a tab called reactions, and if you click on that, the biggest button on it is raise hand. What happens when you raise hand is you go to the upper left of my screen. I can't miss it. So when a whole lot of people raise hand, it forms a queue, and it makes it possible to manage an unruly mob like this without resorting to brutal tactics like pencil and paper. So with that, let's see. I had one other announcement before I go back to gallery view and start looking for raised hands. As some of you might know, the great furniture maker Gary Knox Bennett of Oakland, California, died last Friday at age 87. Anybody who's hung around the woodworking and furniture worlds and conferences will have run into Gary. He was a giant of a man with a huge beard and a ready laugh, and they broke the mold, is what happened. You know, there wasn't anybody else quite like him. I'm not going to do a show on him. I just wanted to mention it, and I guess I'll just to give you a little clue of what kind of a wit he was. One of Albert's catalogs from some important prestigious turning exhibition had a page in it with a picture of a cube of wood. And the title on it by Gary Knox Bennett was Pre-Turned Wooden Bowl. Back to gallery view. Who would like to show stuff tonight? Would you, this tonight, this is the morning, do a raise hand, and I have a list here as well of people who've contacted me. I see Jerry there. I see Dave Hudgell. I see Don Svob's got a clap hand. Don Smith, I got Don Smith. In fact, I'm going to start with Don Smith because he got blown off the screen a couple of times last few weeks. Don, are you there?
I'm going to try screen share.
Yeah, do. You're almost there.
Stop sharing. Okay. The window closed. We'll try again. Here we go. Right. Yeah, I've got it coming up on mine, but not on yours.
Okay.
And that one, we'll have to sort that out later on, John.
Yep.
But before I go, we'll just show you one thing.
You can hold it up.
Holding it up.
Hold it up. Yep.
It's this was part of the project I was going to show you with the photos. It's a fur bowl.
Hold it still now. Stop waving it around. Okay. Nice.
And
so it's a bowl of wooden apples.
Bowl of wooden apples. Soprano, Sporting Beach, and I can't remember the last one. But that's
let me ask you, Don, how old are you and how long have you been turning wood?
I'm 85 and I started turning in 1982 and finished. I'm more of a restorer now than a turner, but I did teach at Chichester College Night School.
Uh-huh. Well, it's very nice to meet you, and I'll tell you what, before next week, before the meeting, let's practice sharing again and we'll get it right.
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
Get that right.
I'm going to go
Thanks
back.
Anyway.
Yeah, nice try. I'm going to go back to the
Oh,
gallery view and no, in fact, I'm going to share screen for Dave Hudgel. Dave, are you there? Turn your
Yes,
mic
I'm
on.
here.
Okay,
I'm here.
I'm going to share screen and show your slides if I can.
Well, greetings from Southwest Ontario, and I have to say initially that this club is amazing. To have a show and tell every week, the enthusiasm and the skills is just really impressive.
We have a lot of fun now. Can you see can you see the slides there?
Yes, I can. Yes, the one on the upper left is an Eastern red cedar urn. It's a small urn that could handle a small child or a pet. It's not a, it's just a sit on top, which can be glued together once the ashes are in there. The one on the upper right is a cherry turn bowl with a kind of a stubby finial on it. The one on the lower left is a more rounded urn that'll hold about 150-pound person. It's usually roughly 1 pound of body weight ashes equals 1 cubic inch of volume within the urn.
Can you put ashes directly in a wooden urn, or do you have to put a metal liner in there?
Well, I don't think you need a metal liner. I would assume that a plastic, that the ashes would come in some sort of container that could be put in the urn, especially if it were something like a plastic bag or something. I don't have any kind of lining in these specifically. I would think if they're ashes, they're dry and nothing's going to happen in relation to interacting with the wood. But I don't know. I'd like to hear what others more expertise knows about this.
This is Mike. Could I say something? I had some personal experience with a funeral home. If you take, before they distribute the ashes, if you'll take the urn to the funeral home, they will handle that for you. And they do put a plastic bag type of liner inside, and then they fill the ashes and seal that liner.
Thank you. That's good.
Anybody else with experience in this?
John, I do too. I work at a funeral home, and this is Mike Lebo. The ashes are very dry, and I know they do put them in plastic bags before they put them in any urn, whether it be metal, glass, or wood.
Wow. So you can just put the plastic bag in there, are you saying?
Yeah, they put a plastic bag in, and then they pour the ashes into the bag, put the top down in, and seal it.
So for a 200-pound dude, you needed 200 square inches. Is that right?
Cubic inches.
Cubic inches.
Yeah, cubic inches, not square inches.
And do you know
A bit
that
larger, than three quarters of a gallon.
3 quarts?
Yeah.
That is a lot.
With our population becoming more obese, I'm doing one now that will probably hold almost a 400-pound person. I didn't do that on purpose. It just happened. I had a nice big piece of wood, and that's the way it ended up.
That's a couple's urn.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a possibility. I thought about that.
We've had some where we put both of them together and a dog.
Oh,
Both of them
okay.
together and
Really?
a dog.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Dave, how many of these do you make? Is it like part of what you regularly do?
Oh, no, it just happens to, depends on the type of wood, the size of the wood that comes in. And these are all end grain turnings, and they will not deform because of end grain. And I use oftentimes a hollowing tool to get the center out, the inside turned. So that really works very well, I think.
Dave, this is Alan Miller. How many of your pieces are in actual use? And if not for Dave, I'm just wondering from others, is this something that people are starting to do more and more?
I don't know. One of my neighbors has one of these, anticipating a mother's death. So other than that, I don't have any personal experience with other people using them.
I know I had one I made for many years for my mother, and I finally buried her ashes along with my brothers about 10 years ago. So, but I made it out of wood and it had a plastic bag in it, and I was very happy to have it. It gave me comfort.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else who's been in the urn?
I've got about 10 that have been used right now. And we normally just, put a plastic bag in and seal. And my mother-in-law, when we did hers, again, I just put a plastic bag in, and we took a magic marker, one of the small tip pens, and every member of the family signed their name on it. And then when we buried it, they had to move it. There was no big deal with it.
Do you then glue the lid in?
Yeah, I just put a little bit of epoxy on the lid.
So you don't think they need to be threaded necessarily?
I've done several with just a sewer plug fitting, and I make the lid and I glue it to it. And that gives me a nice thread that works all the time. Whereas I tried the chasing threads, and wood has a tendency to change its shape. And the day you want to use them, if it's a year or two later, depends on how they stored them in their home, you end up with a problem. Whereas with the plastic threads, that eliminates the threading problem.
And how about the diameter of the opening? Does that need to be fairly big so that the plastic bag will fit in easily, or does it make that much difference?
I've put them in a 2.5 inch diameter up to 4 inch diameter pipe thread fittings, and 3 to 4 inches is most comfortable to work with. 2.5 is just a little bit hard to squeeze the bag into it. You sort of have to have a dowel to get the bag to the bottom, and then you fill it with, and then try to seal the bag. It just makes it a little bit awkward.
Yeah, I don't want to poke grandma with a stick, even in the ashes form.
Every 3 to 4 inches then.
Hey, John,
Yeah,
Jack Gardner.
yeah.
The VA has these little compartments above ground that you put your container in. Does anybody know the sizes of those?
I have a commercial one that you receive the ashes with. Here, looking at it, it's about 5.5 inches in diameter and about 6.5 inches tall.
And what is that, Barry? A commercial canister?
My wife's father's ashes are in a like when you if you opt to not simply get the ashes, we opt for an urn from the a no frills urn from the crematorium. It comes in a metal canister, a decorated metal canister that is much bigger than a quart, but smaller than a gallon container. I would say, in looking at it, it's about 5.5 inches in diameter and about 7 inches tall.
Very interesting.
I'm going to put, this is Mike. I did a research just now, and I've got those dimensions. I'll put it in the chat for everybody from the VA website.
Years ago, I made this for my wife's ashes. It's my pre-turning days. It's a kind of an Egyptian-inspired cherry and maple box. That center lid lifts out, and the ashes themselves weigh probably 4 pounds.
Okay.
We've got a couple of urns here that have threaded inserts in them, and the threaded inserts are made out of wood, and then they're just the external threads are put on a spigot and the internal threads are put in a boss. And they've been on the shelf now for 4 or 5 years, and they haven't moved.
they work really, really well. And it gives you a big enough opening. These are 275 cubic inch urns. A friend of mine asked for one a while back, so we ended up getting this one here put together. And I said, well, your urn's ready. And he says, well, that's great, but I'm not.
Ah, you got it.
So I've still got it on my shelf, and he knows it's there, and he thinks it's big enough for both him and his wife. So there's a pair of them. If they need them both, or if they want to both go in one, then we're covered.
Those look like end grained also, right?
That's right. Yeah, these are end grained urns, but in order to make sure that the threads didn't move, the thread insert was done with a threading jig. So I make a bunch of these as well, where we make the threaded inserts, and then people can make a tenon and a bore and mount them. So it gives them a big hole to put the bag in. A lot of times people, I've had one person that I made one for, did not want plastic or metal or anything. They said they wanted the ashes in the wood. So when the wood rotted, all the ashes would go back into the earth to earth, dust to dust, and that kind of thing. So that was kind of interesting. They didn't want plastic in there because they wanted it to, when it's in the ground and the wood disintegrates, they just wanted the ashes to flow into the ground like 1,000 years ago. So it's kind of interesting.
What's the diameter of the opening in yours?
I don't have a tape measure on here right now, but I guess it's probably 3.5 inches. Well, there's my index finger, so it's probably 3.5 inches long or wide.
Good, thank you.
So I'm back in the gallery view, and just by an easy show of hands, how many of you guys have made your own urns? There you go. I think that's pretty interesting. Maybe we'll have a show and tell of funeral urns sometime. But right now I'm going to move it along because we're 20 minutes into the hour. And I'm going to go to Bill Major. You got a question on skews that I think the group will have some fun with. Bill, you there?
Yes, I am. I'm new to wood turning. I made my first project 3 weeks ago, but I'm a very experienced cabinet maker for about 50 years. But my work never included lathe work. Anytime I needed lathe work done, I would hire that out. But in October, my son, who was 40 years old, passed away suddenly, and he was an avid woodworker. He got trained by me as he was growing up, and then he moved to South Carolina, where he became the vice president of a woodworking company, and he did that for many years. But anyway, he had things all over the house that he made, and one of the things was on a mantle in his living room, and my two daughters saw these segmented turnings. They didn't know what they were called, but that's what they were, segmented turnings that he had done. And they said that they would love to have something like that. So of course I came home and I started learning about segmented turning, and got a couple books. There's so many YouTube videos, it's unbelievable. But part of my startup process had to include sharpening chisels, because the chisels that I have were given to me probably 30 years ago and just sat in a box and were never used. So I got out these chisels and I bought the one-way grinding jigs and tried to start using them on my grinder. And I did pretty well with everything except skew chisels. And that's my question. The skew chisels that I have 4 of them. This is 2 of them right here.
Now hold them still so we can see them. Yeah, good.
It's they're 1 inch wide. This one over here is about a 1/4 inch thick, and this one on this side is much less than that. And then I have smaller ones. And if you notice,
stop waving it around. Just hold it still. Yeah.
Okay. Is that still?
Yep.
Okay. This one's about a 1/2 inch wide, and where my questions become, I've tried to use these and I realize skews are a learning curve. So I'm right in the beginning of the learning curve, but I'm not having much success using these tools to work with. So my question is, the angles on these are all different. You can see the difference in these two easily, that they're very different.
Well, let me, wait a sec. I'm going to stop you here right now because there's two angles of concern. One is the skewness angle, and the other is the actual included angle of the sharpened edge.
Okay, I'm not talking about the included angle. I'm talking about what'd you call the other angle?
Skew, the skew angle.
Okay, the skew angle. And so all of my skews are different. Here's the other one, and you can see the difference between these two. The one in my right hand, this one, is the one I prefer to use. It seems to work the best, but I think my book that I bought a book about sharpening written by a guy named Leonard Lee, has good technical information in it. So I'm trying to follow what he says, but the only chisel I have that has got the right skew angle and the correct included angle is this one right here. The others are really bad. So what's that?
Let's go in the room and see what we get on that, because I think you're going to get some pretty strong views here.
Okay,
Hello,
good.
John.
Who wants
Hello,
to go
John.
first? Yeah.
John here.
Yep.
Right, two things. One, if you've got a flat skew, I would recommend that you run the 4 edges of the length on a grinder and take the sharp edge off. That will save you from having bites into your tool rest when you use it. And the second point that I always taught and showed my students is the third from the heel of the skew is your cutting area. If you use roughly the third from the base or the heel, your toe will not dig in.
You've got 2 points here. The long point is the one that extends, and the short point or the heel is the a more obtuse angle. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So when you use it, make certain that your heel is facing the floor, your toe is facing the ceiling, and you run roughly a third of the angle, or sorry, a third from the heel onto the wood. That way you will not get a dig in from your point or the toe or the heel. Use it as a planing cut and you should find that you will suffice. Just practice. Do not be afraid of it. That is the main thing. Do not be afraid of your skew. Hope that helps you.
Who else?
If you look, it does help.
Who's next here on skews? Who do a little raise hand so I can get some order here. Kai, I'm going to turn to Kai. Kai knows a lot, and then Mike Peace, and then Chaliki, and we'll get you. This is obviously one people want to talk about. Go for it, Kai.
You asked about the skew angle, and I have some that are crowned at 60 degrees and some that are crowned at 70 degrees, and they both seem to work for me. I use both angles, and the reason is when I got the tools, they were either crowned at 60 degrees or at 70 degrees, and because I didn't want to waste a lot of tool steel or material, I just kept the angle that they had and sharpened them in this angle, and both works for me. What's your experience concerning the skew angle?
I find the same thing. I have them at several different angles, and they're useful in different situations. Mike, let's hear from you. Mike Peace, you usually have got something to say.
I'm not sure that it's not really critical. I think it's user preference, except for one thing. If you use it to make a dovetail recess, something around 75 degrees gives you a pretty good angle. Michael Gibson, you probably got a thought on that.
The angle should be 1.5 times the width of the skew. Does that make sense?
Well, we're talking about
the skew. We're talking about the skew angle, not the bevel angle, Michael.
Well, that would give you the angle. If you have the bevel too long, it becomes very fragile. You can still use it up fine.
We're still talking about the skew angle, Michael, not the bevel angle.
It doesn't make, like you said, it doesn't make that much difference. But the ideal is 1.5 times the width. And if you have it too long, it becomes very, very fragile at the end, and it'll lose its edge a lot quicker. So what they recommend, like I think it's 60, is an ideal. Although, as you say, it doesn't make that much difference.
Okay.
If you-
Selikian, did you want to get in on this? Let me add your spotlight in here. What do you got to say?
Yes, yes. I've just started turning in the last couple of years. And what I would recommend for a beginner, actually for anybody, is Richard Raffin's book on wood turning. It's called Wood Turning, Richard Raffin on wood turning, and it's fantastic. He explains all the tools and how to use them, gives you exercises. And I was using going through some of his skew exercises, and I thought I was kind of cheating because the way he explained it, it became very easy. So I would highly recommend that. Richard Raffin, fantastic. And he really is a proponent of the skew.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, just hold it still, Mike, closer to your face. You got to be in the same plane as your face in reference to the camera. There you go. I'll put that in the follow-up email as well. And what do you got there? That's from Thompson Lathe Tools, Michael?
Yeah, that's Doug Thompson's tools, and he recommends 40 degrees. Let me see if I can show you.
We're not able to see that, but
if you go to Doug Thompson's site, he's got this same form, the same flyer, and you can print it off.
yeah, I'm going to put that in the chat as in the follow-up as well. Okay, I'm going to remove all these spotlights if I can and go back to a gallery view.
And I want to reiterate John's suggestion. This book by Richard Raffin is the absolute best, I think, there is out there on all the basics of wood turning, because he does a marvelous job of providing incredible detail along with a lot of pictures. A lot of pictures.
And I'm going to put an invitation out to Richard to come on the coffee hour sometime soon. Although it's not going to be easy for him because he's in Australia and it's 12, 13 hours away. But we might find a way to do it.
If Mike Darlow can manage it, I'm sure Richard can.
Yeah. Darlow made it. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else with anything trenchant to say about skews, or should we move along here? Kai, you still at it? Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about the Richard Raffin book. I bought one about 25 years ago or something like that, long time ago, and there was a video that came with it. And the combination of book and video was really great at that time for me to improve my wood turning skills. So I don't know whether there's a video that goes with a new book that Mike showed.
No,
I think you will find there are. Richard has an active YouTube channel and is putting out a lot of videos now. So he's easy to find on YouTube.
Okay, so that might be a good idea for a beginner then to look these up.
Yeah, and I just want to say, as a little bit of personal horn blowing, it was me at Taunton Press back in the 80s that pushed book and video combinations on topics exactly like this. And at least one of Richard's videos was shot in my shop in Bethel, Connecticut. So there you go.
Oh. Yeah. You helped us a lot. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great thing.
Okay.
I have a question. I prefer bowl turning because I'm scared of the skew. All you guys say it's really tough. Well, I found the bowl gouge to be tough to deal with. Which is more difficult? I have a couple skews. I don't think they even touched wood. They're laying there, but I'm grinding down my bowl gouge and I'm getting familiar with it. So what's the deal? What is one really that much harder than the other?
The hardest part is your skew. As long as you control the skew, you're okay. If you are having trouble, I would recommend that you change from a flat skew to an oval skew. The oval skew would give you a better run across your rest.
Well,
The bowl gouge, as long as you start with your bevel rubbing before you get your cut, you will find that you will get into your bowl turning far better.
Well, I'll just say I can't use an oval skew and I'm pretty good with a flat one. So there you go.
I'm with John. I've never figured out what to do with an oval skew.
One of the things you'll find too, when you're working with the skew, it makes me think back to when I was about 7 or 8 years old and I tried riding a 2-wheel bike. I struggled and struggled and struggled and scratched my knees and busted my elbows and all the crap. And then all of a sudden I figured out how to balance it and I was off to the races for the next 60 years. Well, the skew is like that. Struggle for a little while, but practice. Once you get it, it's like riding a bike. You just pick it up and it cuts. I love a skew. I use a skew for so many things. I even cut coves now with a skew.
Yeah,
I do. It's all practice and confidence, and don't be scared of it. And I've got a lot of catches, but I did work with Richard Raffin for a couple of weeks, and he's the one that got me over the scariness of it. But for me, it was like riding a bike. Once you get it, it's just so relieving because it's such a valuable tool. You can use it for so many things. But Richard's got a perfect explanation on how to use it.
John?
Yeah.
Richard Raffin, in terms of sharpening, he advocates putting a curve rather than having the skew as a straight line. He curves it, and I actually bought a Taylor skew that's a Richard Raffin, and it comes already kind of pre-curved, and that makes it easier, less catches and all.
Well, that's also
the Taylor skew had a lot more curve in it than I liked, and then eventually I ground it out to a more gentle curve.
Historically, the skew would be the older tool, right? The gouges came in more recently, and the gouges can be used for spindle or bowl turning, but the skew, you would never find a use for it on bowl turning, right?
Use it for
straight
straight
V grooves.
Oh.
And it's also used for putting a recess, and as I mentioned, in the bottom of a bowl.
or making the foot. And it's a pretty good little scraper too, actually, for really fine little delicate scraping.
Yes.
Hold it flat on the rest, and it's a good scraper.
But you don't have a burr on it though, do you?
Nope. I don't know why it works, but it does.
The original question I think he was having trouble with was the sharpening. If he's got the one-way system, the Wolverine, it comes with well, it doesn't come with it, but you can buy a separate jig that fits in for sharpening skews.
Yeah, I did purchase that. I have it.
Yeah.
And you're still having trouble?
Well, I'm a very detail-oriented person, and the specs that I've read about how these should be ground mine don't conform to that criteria. And since I'm new at using a skew, which I know you need to practice for a couple thousand hours before you get good at it, but I wanted to be able to start in the right place, you know, with the angles and the bevels cut correctly. And I've been hearing that it doesn't matter, basically, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, but if you want a place to start, the 70-degree angle is a good one. I'm going to replace the spotlight with Alan Miller and move the conversation along. Do you see Alan there?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to share screen. Okay, yeah, this is my wig stand that I made. I had a couple questions about this. As you can see, it kind of has two different design features to it. One being concentric ovals or rings down here at the bottom. The other one being a more cleaner with lines burnt in. And the particular reason for that was that the piece I used for the upright, I was running out of room. It was thinner at the top than it was at the bottom. My intention originally was to add some extra beads and coves and so on up through here, but I just didn't think I had enough material to do that. And so the design question for the group, do those two separate designs complement each other or do they conflict with each other?
Comments?
I like them. How tall is it? It's hard to get a sense of perspective.
I think it's about 16 inches tall, 14, 15, somewhere in that range.
And is there lights up under the dome?
No. This is a wig stand. So let me see here once. Yeah, there's the up underneath. I just did a step down to loosen the weight on the top.
Okay, it felt tall and skinny. That's all.
Yeah, well, and this is basically built on the design that Barry sent out a few months back. And I think it was a design from John Kelso there that in an article you wrote some time ago, John, I can't quite remember where.
That was one of the pieces that came out. Yeah, but this is the club project right now. Is WIG stands for charity for cancer patients.
And
a lot
so
of
the
clubs do this, and we got a lot of guys playing with it in our club. So
the bottom is 6 inches, the top is 5 inches. It doesn't necessarily look that way from that picture.
yeah, I would have made the stem more curvaceous with more detail in it, but that's me. I like spindle turning.
Is this all one piece?
No, it's 3 pieces. And it's not glued up yet. I mean, in theory, I could take it apart and try to add some more detail to it.
I wouldn't. I think it looks good. I think you have a nice design there. I'm just saying my own taste, if it was me, would be different. That's all. And I think that's what you're up against here. There's nothing wrong with your design. You're kind of worried that it's not a good design, but it looks okay to me.
I like the simplicity.
There you go.
By the way, how do you burn? I have one heck of a time burning with a wire. Somebody said piano wire is good. Where do you get piano wire?
Well, Jim, you can also, I use old guitar strings. And I put the little groove in first. And so once the groove is there, and with the string, I've got little wooden handles on each end. So you loop it around and just hold it for a little bit, and soon you see the smoke flying, and yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's the way mine is too, but I can't get it anymore to smoke. Maybe it's done tired. It worked for a while, but not anymore.
Jim, I use a piece of Formica, which works very well. You could try that.
Run your lathe a lot faster.
Yeah. And then it'll jump out and go all over the place.
Well, just make sure you're never hand holding that piece of wire. Always have it on wooden handles that you can let go of. Because if that thing grabs and you've got it around your finger, you're going to lose your finger.
Mm-hmm. Another thing you
also gets very hot.
Another thing you can use is the cable on a push bike, on the old brake cable, if you want a thicker line.
Aha. So in other words, that's a braided cable you'd be talking about.
Yes, the braided cable.
Yeah. I've also seen people use smooth nichrome wire, but I have no experience myself.
Cheese wire?
Yeah, that should do it.
Cheese wire is as good as piano wire?
I finally got tired of it not working. Mine's braided, but I think all the braids have gotten full of the junk, you know. So I went and got a number 12 copper wire. Well, about the time it starts smoking, the wire just melted.
Yeah. It's all to do with pressure.
Back to you, Alan. Anything more you want to ask or say about this?
That's all I needed for today. So thank you all very much. And I'll try to, there's my stop the share.
Yeah, there we are. I hope we're back on gallery view with no spotlights. Okay, Clifton Chisholm, you got in touch with me beforehand. Clifton, where are you?
Is my mic on?
It is.
Yep.
Oh, okay. No, I had a lot of fun watching some of the videos, and we talked about and we were talking about parting tools and thin parting tools and using some saws and things like that. And sometimes I really get too far into the weeds with this stuff, but I had an instructor use a hacksaw to make the parting cut, and I'm going to go with the overhead here. And so here's the hacksaw. Oh, I just got back into some sphere boxes.
Oh, very cool.
So I was just going a little bit crazy. And one of the issues is the parting cut and trying to lose as little of the cut as possible. And one of the things that I found out was even with the parting cut, and this is a really bad cut with a dull parting tool. This is cherry, and cherry for me burns when you look at it. But one of the issues was the subsurface damage that you had to skim off just to get back to good wood. So with the hacksaw, what I did was I watched the guy do it, and it was nicely done, but there was paint transfer from the hacksaw blade. And if you can see the little waviness of the set, I call it lapping. I lapped it off on a diamond hone to take some of that set off. And what it does is, as much as I really thought that the saw would tear up the wood, and I'm going to see if this is another angle. It didn't. And so when I came back to it, I think I'm out of focus.
No, you're not bad. You're going to show us this? You're going to demo it?
Well, I can. I just didn't want to take up too much time. But the idea is with making that cut, and I realize that this is going, way overboard and to the nth degree. But I have to take off a good heavy 30-second to get back to clean wood with any of my other parting tools. And with this, using the
see, I'm afraid the teeth on that are going to pull it right out of your hand.
But it doesn't, and that's just the thing. It really doesn't. And with watching that video from last week, it really showed that some coarse teeth. So I do realize with this using this instead of a handled saw, it might seem dangerous, but the idea is I pinned this in here so it can't get pulled out. And this is fairly controllable. There's, like I said, there's no grab. And then the other part is, if I really wanted to, I could put the tool rest here. So if it did get pulled out and wanted to fling around, it would hit the tool rest. So there is some safety involved. But here's this is to me, the nice part about this is when I go back, and I don't know if I can get a little light on this. I don't know if that helps or hinders. When I go back to make this cut, I'll show you that I am taking off such a small amount. Let me lower this a tad. Anyways, here's my little, here's how much it takes to clean this up.
We don't often get live demos on this hour. This is great.
So you can see how much I'm taking off, hardly anything. And I'm back to clean wood. And so to me, that was the deciding factor. It is not, and you can't, it's just hardly there. There's just hardly a lip that comes off. But as I said, is it necessary? That I'm not sure. For certain situations, I think it is necessary because I'm losing such a small amount of wood, and that's what I'm after.
Okay.
If I was doing production, it would be something else. I certainly wouldn't do this. But the idea is the hacksaw, lapping off those little outside parts, taking off the paint so it's not there, and that's what I came up with. So I just wanted to pass that on because of the last week's talk of the thin parting tools was really interesting to me. So I wanted to thank you for that.
I want to see if we get any comments on that parting tool before we go into the saw blade as a parting.
Oh yeah,
tool.
absolutely.
Anybody else got anything to say about that?
I didn't notice, was the lathe running backwards since you were underneath?
No. Well, you put the blade in so that the teeth are in the right cutting orientation. So it's like a pull cut, like a Japanese pull saw. The teeth are so you pull it. The only issue I've really had was I tried some exotics that were oily, and that tended to fill the teeth, and I'd have to stop and take those off with my fingers. With dry wood, you just smack it and it comes off.
For clarity, the teeth are pointing away from the handle?
No, the teeth are pointing towards the handle.
Towards the handle.
So when I pull it,
That's how you could do that undercut below the workpiece.
Absolutely, yes. Like a Japanese pull saw. I mean, when you pull it, it puts the blade in tension. So, yes.
Anybody else, or should we say that's worth a try?
Well, yeah, the question is, you really need to take the set out of the teeth, and you have to get to a point where it'll still cut and not bind, but it'll be like almost cutting butter with a knife.
Yes, that's right.
If you're going to take all the set out of the teeth, why don't you use a Japanese pull saw to start with?
You're not taking the set out of the teeth.
Okay.
You're not taking the set out. All you're doing is taking on each of the, because this is made by a wavy. And could you use a Japanese pull saw? You certainly could. This is $1.50.
Okay.
So, I mean, that has another aspect to it. But yes, you could use a Japanese pull saw. I don't know. I know that the Japanese have different style teeth for different style things. And you can certainly, in the schools I've been to, the Japanese saws are the ones that are most abused. They're the ones with the bent over teeth and all things. So I'm pretty sure, again, $2.
Okay. I'm back.
But it's the results I'm after mostly, is the fact that when I make this cut and I skim such a small amount off, that's what intrigued me the most.
Yeah, I think that's a real good tip. I'm going to try that.
That's my, I mean, that was the deciding factor when I need this type of a thing. There's other things I do where I just use it's like a bulldozer parting tool. I'm just going in to get it done.
Okay.
Anyways, that was the fun part. Thank you for those videos, because they really are fun and they help.
Hey, thank you, Clifton.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
slice this chunk out and make a little video out of it too, probably. Back to gallery. I'm going to take the liberty of showing you a video that I have here. That this is a follow-on to my toolbox, which we looked at a couple of weeks ago. This is a video I made in the last couple of days, and I'm going to post it publicly. But I would like you guys to see it first. We got just about enough time. It's about 7 minutes. So I'm assuming that's going to be okay with everybody?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Let's design the 4-bar linkage that makes a sturdy Pythagorean lift. You can use a sturdy mechanism like this in all kinds of furniture situations. This is 4-bar jack, a little sculpture I made in 2013 during the ITE in Philadelphia. Jack demonstrates the basic 4-bar linkage, which engineers use to translate motion. The squarish bar fixed to the base is called the ground. The other bars move relative to it. Jack levers himself up to a solid and stable 90 degrees. Then he flexes his joints and folds down flat. You can see how useful something like this is in furniture design. Let's dig a little deeper and figure out how it works and how to design one. These two rocker arms rotate through 135 degrees while Jack stands up to 90. The small traveling arm somersaults through a full 360 degrees with each cycle of the mechanism. I've taped my little green assistant to the traveling link so you can watch him do the backflip. Meet Pinocchio, an earlier version of 4-bar jack, and now part of the permanent collection at the Center for Art in Wood in Philadelphia. My rolling turning tools cabinet uses 4-bar linkages to make sturdy lifts that extend from both sides. Here's the wing on the other side. This is what's called a Pythagorean lift. It's easy to fold down and to lift up. It locks in place and it's very sturdy. the ground is fixed to the side of the cabinet, the short crank rotates through 180 degrees, while the long crank with the top attached rotates through 90. In this arrangement, the traveling arm is just a connector, though it does translate completely from one location to another. So measure carefully and bore clean, straight hole. Make a gauge so you can turn the pivot pins to a nice smooth fit, not too tight, not too loose. And make simple jigs so all the bars come out the same. The pivots also can be made as tenons on both ends of separator turnings. A reliable shop-made self-locking right angle lift has many practical applications. Here's a prototype double lift folded down flat. It could make a nice folding laptop stand. Quadruple lift makes a sturdy pedestal to support this heavy old word processing machine. Small walnut end table with cherry legs folds down flat. And it can deliver motion. Working the black pawn moves the traveling bar and with it the yellow dish from one end of the board to the other. Lemniscate of Bernoulli, ITE 2013. Because the connecting bar actually travels from one place to another, we can use it to draw. Find point P, the center of the traveling bar. A compass is a 3-bar linkage that only draws circles. The 4-bar linkage draws the circle and also the figure 8 infinity symbol, that is the lemniscate of Bernoulli, inside the circle. This point is a singularity where the mechanism can choose to go up around the circle, down around the circle, or to traverse either branch of this lemniscate in the center. So to design our lift, the dimension of interest here is AB, the long crank support for the platform. Or maybe it's the distance down to the floor, that is the fixed bar plus the short crank. So if we wanted AB, the horizontal bar when the lift is up, to be 10 inches, okay, that's 5 lengths we're going to need to know to make one of these. And we've decided one of them, AB, 10 inches. We also get to specify the right angle triangle, and we're going to stay with ones we're familiar with. So because Pythagoras, if it's a 45-degree right triangle, AB is 10, AC is 10, and BC is 14.14. So now we know all 3 sides of the triangle, and that's 3 of our 5 variables, leaving only 2 to find. That is the length of the long ground bar, AD, and the short crank, CD. We can see from the closed diagram that AB plus BC equals AD plus CD. And the open diagram tells us that the short crank, CD, is as long as the fixed crank, AD, minus AC, the distance that comes into being when the gizmo is open and the triangle forms. So bringing it all together and doing the algebra, we find we can solve for the 2 missing variables, and now we know enough to build the gizmo. So pause the video here if you want to note down the math, and if you don't, wait for the next slide where I'm going to give it to you in the form of a table. So here's workable dimensions for 8, 10, and 12-inch horizontal shelf supports using a 45-degree triangle and using a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Thank God for wood. Back at gallery view.
Very good.
I love it, John.
Can you guys tolerate that amount of math is really my question.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Good.
Very good.
I have a question, John.
Yeah.
Are those distances the center of the holes that you drill?
Yes, center to center distances.
John, you know, one of the cool things about screen grabs is I can grab, which is what I did, grab the formula without having to copy it down.
Yep, I figured you'd do that. Anybody else who knows how to do that can do it too.
John, do you have plans for the tool cart?
No, I've given you, the overall dimensions appear in my other video on the tool cart, but I haven't drawn up no plans. Mostly I want to give you the concept, you design your own.
And there's one other thing that came up at the meeting Tuesday. I just wanted to point this out about gluing things. Somebody had the off-center turn people and they were gluing hats to the top on an angle. And on page 16 of the new AAW, got that backwards. My piece has something in about putting some basic wood glue on 2 pieces of wood and then putting a drop of CA glue on that to accelerate the gluing. That might be worth some people seeing. Thank you very much for all of you people for what you're doing. Thanks again.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody else? We're near the hour, but anybody's burning to say anything, now's your chance. I know we left some people who had some things to show on the table. I had Gerald, I had Don's fob, and we'll come back to you next week along with anybody else who wants to show stuff. And then in 2 weeks, we'll have Steve Lohr, and yeah, and on we go. And on that note, kids, we've come to the end of another hour. Thank you for indulging me with my video. I had a lot of fun making that and a lot of fun showing it too.
Thank you, John, for another great meeting.
Thanks, guys. A lot of fun today.
Good meeting.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, John.
Cheers.
Thanks, John.
Hope you don't get hit with too much ice.
Thanks, John.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye. Keep the snow to yourself.
Thank you.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.